G'day guys, how are we? Welcome to Talking Boxing. Great to have you along. It's been a fair bit happening in the boxing world lately, so we've got a lot to get through tonight. You will notice I've got a little bit of a different background tonight. I'm sick of looking at the blurred background. This is not perfect. It's not my usual green screen. As you can see, I'm sort of here and I'm not. But as I said, it's a little bit better than the blurred screen that I normally have just with my little office in the background. So I hope this suits tonight. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to go through the usual Australian and world scene. That's always a given. But what I'm going to throw in there tonight is the top 10, excuse me, the top 10 Australian boxers of the modern era. And when I say the modern era, I mean probably from the 80s onwards. I can't believe I'm saying that as this modern era, that it's the 80s, considering it was 40 odd years ago. Makes me feel pretty old. But as always, guys, this is your show, so it's really important that you get involved. If you've got any questions, comments, suggestions, or whatever it might be, make sure you put them in the comment section. I'll answer any questions that you might have. As I said, this is your show, so I'm going to go through my stuff, but you guys got anything you want to talk about at all, make sure you put them in, as I said, the comment section, and let's talk some boxing. So before we get onto the top 10 of the Australian modern era, let's go through last week's show, which was the Nikita Zoo and Ben Horn show. I don't know about you guys, but what a event it was. I know everyone was probably assuming that Nikita would win pretty early. I must admit, I was one of them. Well, actually, I don't think I wasn't of the opinion that he would win easy. It was more so that he would get the job done, but in 3, 4, maybe even 5 rounds. And look, what a guy Ben Horn is. Like he all the way through, he said that. I'm going to take it to Nikita. I'm going to go a lot better than what everyone thinks. Then Glenn Rushton got up. Now Glenn's obviously he's copped a lot of grief over the years, a lot of feedback, and I think unfair feedback, probably in his career with Jeff Horn. But he was at the press conference as well. He said that, look, Ben's here to fight. We're going to win this fight. I don't think anyone really believed him. And to be honest with you, I don't really think that Glenn and even Ben probably thought they would beat Nikita, but I really thought they would give a really good fight, which obviously they did. So the whole Horn family should be really proud of Ben's performance. I know Jeff was in the corner, and it was just a great card, really good card. Before we get to that main event, so on the undercard we had it was a Sam Goodman with the 8th round stoppage of Juan Miguel Alorda. I thought Sam looked really good. I know we went over this, by the way, on last week's deep dive show, but I'll quickly go over it again. Sam looked really good over Alorda. Just did what he had to do, and that's all you can do, I suppose. Alorda, I think it was only his second fight in the last couple of years. I think he did fight for a world title a couple of years ago. So, he had the runs on the board, did Alorda, and he comes from a great boxing family or gym, whatever you want to call it, tradition, and he turned up the fight. But Sam Goodman really looks the goods. I think Sam's still a little bit away from becoming a top liner, I think, but he's only had 12 fights now, and really looks like he's going to be a very good fighter. So more to see on that as we go. So good on Sam for that. The other fight on the undercard, Darragh Foley, Hunter Awani. Look, again, we went over this on the deep dive show last week. I wasn't a fan of the Awani behaviour. I thought Darragh Foley was super composed. I thought he acted like a true professional should. A little bit worried in the lead up, might get ugly, and I suppose it did to some extent get a little bit ugly. But I was a little bit worried that Darragh Foley might actually come back down to that. But he just showed what a true professional that he is. There was a little bit of banter, a little bit of pushing and shoving and that sort of stuff. But when the real stuff started, I thought that he conducted himself really well. I was really disappointed in Awani. I know a little bit about him, and obviously we saw him fight Jacob NG, and he did really well in that fight. But I think he realised earlier that he needed a street fight to get to Darragh. Darragh Foley fought really well. I thought he those pinpoint left hands, the right hooks. I think he dropped him with that right hook. Darragh Foley fought the way he planned to, and I think really a credit to his corner as well. Ben Sava kept him grounded, didn't let him get too emotional, didn't let him get involved in a street fight. He really picked his shots really well, and I thought kept his composure. And even when they butted heads, it was just a shocking collision, and you don't like to see that in. But and one thing I will say, I was actually really surprised that the referee or the judge, sorry, not the judge, the doctor actually let it go, because they were horrific cuts. There was blood everywhere. And I think the fact it was only the middle of the fourth round might have had something to do with it. Had it been midway through the fourth, they would have stopped it right there and then. I'm glad they didn't stop it, of course. I wouldn't want to see a no contest. We've had there was a good fight stopped a couple of years ago between Paul Fleming and Bruno Tarimo, which was looking to be a really good fight. Got stopped, I think, in the third round. So I'm glad they let it go. But again, I was really disappointed in a way. I just thought, I mean, he's a bit of a loose cannon. I think he's been open about that he's a loose cannon, and he showed that. But look, I commented about this on last week's deep dive show. I think the Combat Board should have really come in, the New South Wales, and taken some action against him. We saw it a couple of months ago with Manuel Mate and his fight. It carried on like a pork chop, and we just don't like to see it. And because I mean, it really does the promoters harm. I know that show with Manuel Mate. I don't think Angelo DiCarlo has done a show since then on beIN Sports, which is a shame. I hope that's not the cause of it, because apparently he did carry on a little bit after that. So I'm just going to look here, guys. Apparently we're not. It says I'm live on my personal page, but I don't think I am. So I'm not sure what's going on there, guys. Hopefully it will come up pretty soon, but I'm not quite sure why it's not coming up. Anyway, we're on YouTube and Facebook. Again, it says it's going live soon, but I'm not sure. So if you're on Facebook, maybe jump on the Deep Dive channel as well, and of course jump on YouTube. Make sure that keep the comments coming, guys. We really want to get some interaction going here. Thanks, Ross. I'm on. Appreciate that, mate. Beautiful. I'm not on here, but anyway, I'm going to keep talking anyway. I know I'm live on YouTube. I can see that. So anyway, so interested what you guys think of that. Should the Combat Board have taken action against Ioane? I think yes. I think worst case, No Limit should be saying, all right, that's it for our shows. You're off. Give him some sort of ban, whatever it might be. Thanks, guys. Yep, Ross and Andrew. Yep, hi in chat. Yep, thanks very much, guys. Hope the internet's okay tonight. It has been standing up okay. I have got I think I say every week, we're with Starlink. Our tech is coming back, I think, next week to hook us up even better with some poles and whatever else they need to do to get it up higher outside our mountain ranges. Once that's done, I really want to get you guys on to actually chat live if we can. I think it'll create a bit more interaction with you guys. But again, keep the comments coming. So anyway, interested to see what you guys think about Ioane. Look, I just don't think he needs to do it. He's actually, I wouldn't say he's the most talented fighter out there, but he's tough. He's got some skills. Looks like he's got a good team behind him. Just go through on your merits, mate, because if that's the case, he's either going to get black banned from all the promoters out there, or the Combat Board will step in and boot him. So anyway, that was that one. Good, entertaining fight, by the way, I will say. The rest of the card, what was the other one? We had the girls' fights. Actually, the other one I will mention first, Joel Taylor. How good did he look against Michael Hall? Michael Hall is a tough guy, a good trainer in his corner. Lincoln Hudson, one of the best in the business, I will say. Joel Taylor's from a gym in Melbourne, Shadows Gym, trained by Rick Breeze. Really good guy, really good team. And I have promoted him a couple of times, and they are really good people to deal with. So I was really happy to see that he got the win in that one. And look, who knows, will he get the fight with Nikita Zoo down the track? I think it's a little bit early for him, I will say. It was impressive, but he's a welterweight too, remember, which is, 66.5. So he's about 3 to 3.5 kilos off the limit of Nikita Zoo. And I think Nikita Zoo, he's a big light middleweight. So I think not quite yet. I personally would like to see Bo Belbin have another shot at Nikita. That's Tassie Brown's guy, of course. For whatever reasons, he decided not to fight him on this event. I actually think he has a really good shot of going okay against Nikita. Might just be me. I've seen Bo go a couple of times. I think he's had 5, if not 6 fights on my show. So the guy can fight. He's a good guy. He's got Tassie in his corner. So let's hope maybe that might get a little bit of traction. Whether or not No Limit take the risk again of trying to get him the fight, and he might pull out. Who knows? But remains to be seen. But Joel Taylor, good young kid. Other fights for him, of course, Ty Telford. Who knows? Maybe even a Stevie Spark might go up to welterweight at some stage. So we'll see what happens there. But that was, really good performance by Joel. I'm really happy for him. Other fights on the card, the girls, Jessica Adams in the big upset over Ashley Sims. She's the wife of a rugby player. I don't know who the rugby player is, guys. So let me know if you can. I'm from Victoria. It's all AFL down here. I don't know who she is. I don't know who her husband is. Apparently he's a rugby player. So, but I've got a feeling this fight she was supposed to win. She didn't. She got stopped in the second round, which is, as I said, a really big surprise. The other one was that Chanel Dargan over Jala Tomei. I think that's how you pronounce it. Look, Chanel Dargan got the win. Unanimous decision. Majority decision. I actually thought Tomei actually won the fight. So I'm not sure what happened there at all. But Chanel Dargan, I thought was very, very lucky. Interested to see what you guys have to say again. Thanks, Dan. Yep. Please like and subscribe. Appreciate that, mate. We'll put that up there. Can you just confirm, guys, if you're on my personal page, whether it's up or it's just the boxing deep dive show or the deep dive channel, because it's still not coming up from my end that we're live, even though it says on my website that I'm on here that it is live, but it's not coming up. So always something with Facebook anyway, isn't it? So yeah, for some reason it's saying it's not up. So if you can see, guys, let us know. All right, so the rest of the card. Let's see. We have Kate Mclaren won a 4-round decision over Connie Chan. Didn't see that fight. Angel Rushton with the 4-round decision over Aisha Abiad. Didn't see that one. That was a 4-round decision. And also, I was surprised this one wasn't actually on the main card. Jackson Murray. They've got big raps on Jackson Murray, so I'm not sure why he wasn't on the card there. He had a second-round knockout of Pamienda Singh. So I'm not sure why. Maybe, look, they had, was it 3 or 4 female fights? I'm not sure why they didn't have Jackson Murray on that card. He's with Jeff Fennick. You would have thought he would have had a bit of clout, so I'm not sure what happened there. So anyway, only they can answer that. And then, of course, the big one. So what do you guys think of the main event? So YouTube's fine. Deep dive Facebook fine, but no dice on my personal page. So apologies for that, guys, if you've gone onto my personal page. I don't know. Last week the deep dive page didn't work, but my personal one did. So I don't know. I'll give up. Either way, here we are. We're live. However you want to get it. So yeah. So the Nikita Tszyu, Ben Horn fight. What'd you think? As I said, I tipped Nikita Tszyu by 3rd, 4th, maybe even 5th round knockout. I thought that he would box, and it probably went a little bit the way I thought. The one thing that surprised me, I will say, was a little bit how actually it's probably not a surprise. I was intrigued that Nikita really lost the composure pretty early. I was a little bit flustered. I think he maybe expected that Ben Horn wouldn't be as difficult that he was, and that's to be expected. I mean, look, people, again, we talked about this in the deep dive show last week. The guy's had 3 fights in 8 years, and those fights he had as an amateur were as a junior. This is his first crack at senior boxing, and he's done it in the pro ranks. So I know he copped it on social media. I think it's totally unfounded, unwarranted. Yes, he did struggle with Ben Horn, but as I said, three fights he's had this year. Before that, an 8-year spell from boxing. So as I said, I think we just got to take it easy on the kid. He's 24. It's going to take him a little while to get going. Tim took a few fights to get going as well. So I wasn't surprised I was surprised he didn't get him out of there, but I wasn't surprised that Ben Horn actually hung around. You got to remember, Ben Horn's still got the last name Horn. You know, he's a tough guy, and he would have had numerous wars with Jeff in the ring. So I suppose in hindsight, it's a wonderful thing. But to see on social media, he's not as good as everyone thinks he is, and he's going to get knocked out, and he's nothing on Tim or his father. I think just go easy a bit. Let the kid mature and get maybe 10 or 12 fights under his belt before we start judging. And that's how many I would probably give him, 10 to 12 fights before I'd even think of even stepping him up to an international fight. Easier said than done, of course, because there's not exactly a lot of fighters out there in Australia at the moment at that weight. But if they can, maybe there's some in New Zealand. Maybe they can even rehash a few of the opponents that Tim had early in his career, and then maybe even step him up against Koa Mazudia, Kamakeo. I think that's not a fight I would take for Nikita until he's had about 10 fights. If I was them, if I was Glenn Jennings and No Limit, just because Joel is a spoiler. He's an absolute spoiler. He's in, he's out. He leads with his left. He leads with his right. Left foot forward, right foot forward. He's all over the place. Very, very awkward and tough fighter. So as I said, I'll probably wait for that one. But there's other guys out there, and as I said, I think Koa Mazzuti would be a good one for him. It was, and Wade Ryan, I think, would be a good fight for him as well. Wade's not a really big puncher; he's awkward, but I think Nikita style. I think even at this early stage, I think he'd have Wade Ryan covered. So there's some options out there for him. Let's hope we get the Bo Belbin fight, maybe the Benjamin Bomber fight. I know a lot of you guys probably don't know a lot about Benjamin Bomber out there. He's trained by Sam LeBruner in Melbourne. Sam's had some health issues lately, so I'm not sure whether that one will happen soon. Benjamin's actually over in the States at the moment, doing a training camp over there, getting some sparring. So yeah, he's might maybe have that fight in his sights down the track. So. And then, of course, there was, who was the other one? Terry Nicholas. I think Terry ran into a few problems outside the ring, let's just say, and he might be out of action for a few months, if not a few years, I think, from what I've heard. So I'm not sure that'll happen, but still some options out there. So, as I said, I would love to see Bo Belbin take the fight. I think that would be a really good fight next for Nikita. So let's see what happens there. On to the other Aussie news. Some big news on over there. You saw it over the weekend. We put it on our YouTube page. The announcement that Ebony Bridges has been forced or mandated to fight Shannon O'Connell by September 25, I think it was. Actually, before we go on there, thanks. We've got Rowan with a comment there. Ben, would be a good test early. Would it be a good test, mate, or would it be an unnecessary risk? An unnecessary risk for Nikita. I think I said on the episode on Friday morning when it came out that there might be a few people putting up the hand to fight Nikita now. I think Benjamin Bomber, I don't think he would have been worried to fight Nikita anyway, but I would think you might find he might be putting his hand up a little bit earlier than what be expected. And look, he's very inexperienced as well. That would be a ripper fight. Very, very even fight. I still would take Nikita. But Benjamin Bomber's a big, strong young kid who's going to let him go. Probably is a little bit similar to Nikita in style. So that would be an interesting one. But I would think after the weekend, I think they would be happy they got the 6 rounds. Or sorry, not the weekend, last week. I think they'd be happy they got the 6 rounds. But I think they would also see it that maybe we need a few more fights before we really start to go for those types of opponents. Unnecessary risk, yeah, way better. Yeah, look, there's no rush, and I think the good thing about it, to have someone like a Benjamin Bomber out there waiting in the wings, I think is a good thing because they can start to build him up as well. And maybe No Limit might even take on Benjamin Bomber themselves and start building him up, put him on the undercards to Nikita. Let's start building up a rivalry that could maybe in 6, 7, 8 fights down the track, they could fight each other in a big fight on TV. And one thing I'm really liking about the No Limit thing at the moment, and I think I saw Eddie Hearn say something about this the other day, guys, you fight each other or you don't fight at all. We hold the cards. We've got the TV shows, but no, you're going to fight him. You're going to fight him. If you want to be on our cards, earn the good dollars, get the exposure, get the opportunities, you're going to fight. You're going to fight who we tell you to fight. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I think maybe take Benjamin Bomber under No Limit umbrella, build him up alongside Nikita, and let's see if we get a fight that Australia wants in about 18 months to 2 years' time. We'll see. Maybe they might want to rush it in that time, but yeah, it'd be an interesting one to see what happens there. But he's a good young kid, that Benjamin Bomber. He's a bit lippy at the moment. I was some advice to say, hey mate, just relax. You're not going to get No Limit and Glenn Jennings and Team Zoo on board if you're making unnecessary barbs about Nikita. It's not the way to get the fight. They know you're there. They know you can fight. They know you're going to be a good fight for Nikita down the track. So just, as we say every week, stay in your lane, get some wins up, and I'm sure they'll know you there and they'll follow you closely. All right, so let's get into the other thing. Yep, so Ebony Bridges has been forced to fight Shannon O'Connell. Now, I've said in the past, I have been critical of Ebony, but I'm not. Don't get me wrong at any stage. I have total respect for her as far as what she's done in boxing in a very, very limited time. She's done what she has to do. She's got, obviously, Eddie Hearn on board. She's gone over the other side of the world, and she has made the move. So good luck to her. But I've got a feeling she doesn't want to fight Shannon O'Connell, and I'm still to be convinced, this fight is going to happen. We've had nothing from Ebony since the announcement was made. You would have seen my interview with Shannon on the weekend. As I said, I might actually, while we're going there, I'm going to put the link for that episode in here. Make sure you check it out. really good that Glenn Jennings actually rang me on Saturday morning, and he said that I'm just going to get this up here. He said, "Give us a call. We'd love to have a chat. The news has just broken, so I'm just going to get rid of that." So yeah, let's come on for a chat. So it was really good of Glenn to do that. Shannon's actually over in Bali at the moment, so she was good to get on. I've just put the link in the comment section there, guys. So check that out. So that's the interview I did with Shannon O'Connell. So nothing back from Ebony Bridges, surprisingly. Nothing on her social media. I will say she did see my post. I put the post on our Instagram page on the story, I think. Tagged her in it. She saw the post. So she knows what's going on. No doubt she would have watched the interview. I have no doubt whatsoever. But it's surprising she hasn't responded. I'm not sure whether she might be hiding under a bed. Who knows? Or maybe Eddie Hearn said, look, let's just wait and assess. Because as I said, I just get the impression they do not want to fight Shannon. And I reckon they're going to do everything they can to get out of that fight in some way. I don't know how, but this is boxing. Eddie Hearn's a massive name in world boxing, of course. So I've just got the impression that they're going to try everything they can to get out. I know Shannon has got a few other options that will come out down the track that doesn't involve Ebony, but yeah, it's an interesting one. Really appreciate that, Matt, Andy, I think it is. Awesome interview. Thanks very much, mate. Caught me on the fly. I didn't have a chance to really get organised with that interview. I did it totally off the cuff. I was actually doing some training with a young fella Saturday morning before this interview. I did interview. I literally didn't have any time to prep. Went from the gym straight into the office and did the interview without any questions on my mind. So I was really just from a fan's point of view, asking some questions. But the good thing about talking to Glenn and Shannon, they just talk and away they go. So they're really good people. Glenn is one of the best guys you'll ever meet in boxing. He's obviously one of the best managers in boxing. The whole team are great. And as I said, he rang me and said, mate, if you want an interview, here we are. Let's go. Let's get it on another hour or two. And that's literally the way it happened. Shannon had to get her kids organised in Bali and front up. But no, she was great. So let's hope the fight happens. Now, just on the Ebony and fight, I did an Instagram poll a week or so ago. All this news actually dropped. 8% of the poll, about 100 people respond to the poll or vote. 82% went for Shannon. Now, probably a little bit surprised, so one-sided. I think the more I've seen Ebony, I think she'll go okay. She's a strong girl, a woman. She can throw it. My only issue with her is she hasn't got a big tank. Shannon will fight for 20 rounds, 23-minute rounds, if that was the case. She will fight for every second, every minute of every round. Ebony, apart from the experience level, I'm not putting it all into that basket. My biggest worry with Ebony is she just hasn't got the tank to go with Shannon. That's my biggest concern with her. And Shannon, with the attitude she's got, she'll be in the best condition ever, mentally and physically. And I just think she just has more than enough to get through Ebony Bridges. So let's hope the fight gets made. I would love to actually speak to Ebony at some stage. I don't think it's going to happen after that interview. Excuse me, that interview. I don't really think I'm going to be a good graces as far as getting an interview. Not that I don't think I said anything untoward against her, but I think the fact that it's pretty obvious I'm Team Shotgun, so I might be in the black book there. But hey, if she's watching and would love to come in, I would love to interview her. And I know, no doubt, there'll be a lot of podcasts and everything else trying to get the two girls together. So that'll be interesting as well. So plenty to focus on. What about Glenn Jennings? You got to say this year he's had the Tim Tszyu news. He's had Nikita obviously turn pro. He's taken on Shannon. Got her a world title fight within a few months of taking on board. I mean, it's amazing to think. I remember talking to him because I promoted Tim in Bendigo in 2018. I sat down, had a coffee with him and had a good chat about him. And he admitted to me that he probably didn't think that he would probably be in this position ever again after the journey he went through with Costa. And to think that now he's got three fighters all on the way. He's got one that's going to fight for the world title, another one that's been mandated to fight for the world title. And Nikita's probably 3 years away from probably fighting for a world title. Great. I think it's just great for Glenn and everyone involved with those in that team and those guys. I think it's awesome. Just getting back to Nikita, All-Star Boxing. Thanks for coming on board, mate. Really appreciate that. Nikita was a lot better than he showed the other night. Yep. Igor will tighten him up. Anyone who wants to take Nikita's scalp would be wise to do it sooner rather than later. Yeah, mate, 100%. I agree that he is a lot better. Look, the thing is, Ben Horn he fought a really smart fight. I don't know whether it was by design or that's just his style, but he is a bit of a spoiler anyway. And I just think he fought the perfect fight. He stayed out of the range from Nikita early without running. I think Nikita's the type of guy, he's a hunter. He'll hunt you down. If you look at the fight, even though Ben was backing up, he wasn't running. He was staying away. He was looking at the angles. He was tying Nikita up when he got in close, throwing in a few little uppercuts and hooks when he got the chance. And he was making Nikita really work hard to get to him. And Nikita was trying to cut off the ring. That's probably one thing I think they do have to work on, I will say, is to cut off the ring. He let sort of Ben sort of move as he wanted to. So, look, as you said there, Eagle will look at that tape. I think the Zoos are probably their own biggest critics anyway. They would have sat down and reviewed the fight, of course, probably the morning after or a couple of days after. So that's probably one thing I saw. But I said, like, Ben fought a really good fight, but he is a spoiler. If you watch these fights, look, he's 4-4, but it's a deceptive 4-4. He lost 2 fights to Benny Kite. Benny Kite's a bit of a spoiler as well. And then the other 2 fights, I think one might have been in his debut. I think they were early on. They were really early on in his career. So I think he might have won 4 straight at one stage and lost his last 2 to Benny Kite. I think I haven't got the box record in front of me, but so I think we just underestimate him. And sometimes you will find that some fighters are just spoilers and they clash with the good up and coming fighters. You would have seen Nikita had the same problem with Wade Ryan. All the good fighters coming up have always, you run into that type of opponent. That's why it's good to have those type of guys, because you can't just have a stand up orthodox, do everything properly type of fighter all the time. You're going to get guys that are all over the place. So you have to learn to adapt. I don't think Nikita adapted as well as what he will if he gets another 5 or 6 fights under his belt. I think if his fight took place and Nikita had 7 or 8, 9 fights, would have been a bit different. You could see that he was anxious. He wanted to get him out of there. He was just loading up too much, throwing punches when he probably didn't need to throw the punches. He was allowing himself to get tied up. He was pushing. He was shoving. He really got frustrated by it. But that's what fighters like Ben Horn will do. And that's why I think it's a great learning curve. And again, I said on the Deep Dive show last week that I don't think Team Nikita Zoo will look at this and see it as a negative what happened. I think they'll look at it as a positive, and they will look at it that he got everything he needed out the fight. He got 6 good rounds. He got a spoiler type of opponent. He got someone that made him work. He got everything out of that fight. So I think they would look at it as a positive that, mate, this is welcome to the pro ranks. And, there you go. Actually, speak of the devil, Glenn Jennings, no race for Nikita, 8 years out the ring. It's a process to bring him up back in a timely, safe manner. Yeah, mate, I'm not sure whether you saw when we first started talking about this. I did say he did. There's always those internet warrior or the keyboard warriors out there, social media, whatever they are. I did say, look, he was out the ring for 8 years. His last fights before that were as a junior. So to bring him back and straight into the pro ranks as a senior against these guys, we have to be patient with him. And, as I said, you're dead right there. And really appreciate you with a comment there, Glenn. If anyone's got any comments for Glenn, put them in the comment section there, because I'm sure he'll answer them. I'm not sure whether you've been watching the show, Glenn, but just thank you for the interview that we did on the weekend. So really good to get a perspective hot off the press on Saturday. It was great. So, 100% there. And it's really good to hear Glenn say that. And as I said before, Glenn, that I think you guys would have seen that as a real positive, what happened last week. Of course, all the doomsdays out there, expect Nikita to be like his dad or even his brother after 3 fights. Totally unrealistic. And I think that give him 10 or 12 fights and we're going to see this kid. He's going to be a beast out about that. So All-Star Boxing, again, appreciate the comments coming there, guys. Put them in the comment sections. Really, it's a lot easier to get through the episode when we're interacting rather than me talking for an hour. It didn't seem like Ben was trying to win. More so the win for him was not to get stopped respectfully. Yeah, mate, look, there's nothing wrong with saying that. Look, end of the day, Ben's not a fool. He would have known exactly that he was on the B side. He was the opponent. But I think he backed himself to actually go okay. And, I mean, if he didn't think that, he obviously wouldn't have asked for the fight. And I think that was the case. Correct me if I'm wrong out there, Glenn, or whoever else knows, that I think Ben actually asked for the fight. So you don't ask for a fight with Nikita Zoo if you're not confident of putting up a good show. And, look, I know it's the exposure on TV. And I really like what I really like about the attitude of Ben was what we need to see more of. He said, look, mate, I'm not here for a haircut. I'm a professional fighter. I want to be on TV. I want to fight good opponents. I want to get paid well. So I think he goes against a grain of Australian mentality a little bit sometimes. We're all trying to get the records and all trying to have off the opponents. That's what I said earlier with Eddie Hearn. I know with you guys saw it out there that when he came to Australia, he had 50 people ring him about catching up about contracts and to fight down the track and, to be on Matchroom. He said, all right, well, that's the case. You're going to fight him. He said, the amount of them said, oh, but I don't really want to fight him. I want to fight him. No, mate, it doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. And that's what he said, if you want to be on these cards, then you fight who I say you're going to fight or hit the road. And that's what I really liked about Ben. And that's why I think he really got the respect of everyone, including Nikita. I think the person in the world that would have respected him more than anyone after that fight was Nikita, because Nikita hit him with everything except the kitchen sink, and he stood up and fought back, and I just thought it was a great fight. And I think the limit themselves were sat back and went, how good's this? We've had this this Fox, what's it called? No Limit on Fox night, and lots of people tuned in because it was free. It wasn't a pay-per-view, and they've seen an awesome card with an awesome main event to cap it off. So I think they would have been wrapped. Fox Sports would have been wrapped, and hopefully we'll get a few more guys say, hey, yeah, well, I might be willing to step up and have a crack at Nikita. I just think it was a win all round. So I just thought it was great. Ben is, what do we got there? Ben is a fighter at heart. He stepped up and lost, but he stepped up 100%, mate. He is, look, I respect anyone that gets in there, but I think the cred that Ben got out of that fight, I just thought it was awesome. And if Ben's watching, I'm sure he's not, but if he was watching, I just say, hey, mate, full respect from myself, the Australian fight fans. As I said, Team Zoo. I think we just need more and more guys like you. And I think we've mentioned on the show in the past, Australian boxing or world boxing needs the Ben Horn world. Those tough, rugged. I'll call him a journeyman. I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but end of the day, fighters like him are probably referred to as journeymen, but tough journey. And we need those guys. We need them. You can't just have all these stars who just fight the imports and all that sort of stuff to fight each other. I just thought it was great. And you could see Jeff Horn at the end of it too, Glenn Rushton, how proud they were of Ben. And, as I said, I've said it 10 times, but I just think, the Australian boxing public should really be a fan of Ben Horn. I really do. Glenn, thanks for that. Kudos to Ben Horn. He put his hand up, no questions. Yep, he just loves the fight. We're grateful as we didn't have any luck with those committing the fight in Nikita. Yeah, well, we spoke about that too, Glenn. And I think you mentioned in the press conference that there's a lot of people gobbing off in the lead up or after his last fight, and then they went pretty quiet after that. I know there's some extenuating circumstances I'm pretty sure you would know about with a couple of those guys. But yeah, look, kudos to Ben Horn. And what I really liked about it as well is that to see Team Zoo and Team Horn at the end of it, even I think I saw Jeff and Tim with the photo. I just think it's great, and I know we like to play on the rivalry sort of thing, but I know I can't speak for you, Glenn, but I would have thought that neither camp would have seen it as a real rivalry. I just think, it's good for the promoting it up and everything else. I just think they're just two great fighting families who just happen to be, the universe sort of came together and allowed them to fight. But and I do apologise, guys. I'm going to message out. The internet's not overly great, but you can hear me. That's the main thing. So apologies about that. Again, I am working on it. But if the internet's no good from your end, I do apologise as long as you can hear. So again, to Glenn there, mate, really appreciate with the comments there, because it's great to get it from you guys, from the source, rather than us sort of speculating about it. I'm not sure whether you heard me say before that I think you guys would have been rapt that the fight turned out the way it did. I'm sure you wouldn't have liked Nikita to take as many punches as he did towards the end there, but I just think you guys would have been rapt that he got 6 really good, hard rounds against a good, strong, durable opponent. Going to hold him in good stead going forward. So kudos to everyone involved with the Horn and Nikita Zoo fight. So getting back to another one of your fighters, Glenn, if you're going to comment there about Shannon and Ebony, I did say that as it has been mandated, but I still have just an inkling of doubt that they're going to try something to get out of it. I don't think they want the fight. I really don't. I really hope it comes down to where it's got, look, you have to fight or you hand over your belt. I would be absolutely staggered if she handed in the belt. I couldn't. I don't think it's ever happened, has it, where someone was handing a belt because they don't want to fight a particular fighter. I think if it is the end of September, geez, how good would it be to be on the undercard of Paro and Jarvis? I would love to see it as a standalone main event. I will say that right from the bat, off the bat. I would love to see Ebony Bridges, Shannon O'Connell on probably a no limit on Fox show. It would be awesome. Maybe get a couple of other, maybe get a Sam on the undercard or a Liam Wilson on the undercard or something, a co-main event that we can put on there just to pack it up a little bit. But I have no doubt that Ebony Bridges, Shannon O'Connell on a standalone show in Australia is 100% feasible. And I think women's boxing's come along enough these days that it could stand on its own. And there's not many female fights out there that probably could, but this is definitely one of them. And I just think it'd be great. I hope Eddie doesn't try and get it to England. I really hope it's in Australia because I just think just be a great fight, not just for women's boxing, but Australian boxing. It'd be awesome. All right, here we go. We've got some inside goss from Glenn. Matt Rose and Eddie Hearn are negotiating as we speak. Awesome. We are confident it will happen, and Shannon will commence camp this week. How good is that? Well, there you go, guys. You can't get much better than that. The manager of Shannon O'Connell saying it as it is, the negotiating. I'd love to be a fly on the wall, Glenn, on that conversation. I think it'd be great. I did say earlier too, Glenn, that I haven't seen anything back on social media from Ebony, even though she did see the story that I tagged her in, the post on Instagram. She did see it, but hasn't commented at all, which is quite surprising knowing her. I was waiting for her to come on and say that, Shannon's on this shitty little YouTube channel in Australia and this and that, but she hasn't said anything. So I'm not sure what's happening there. But how good's that? They're negotiating, and let's hope the fight happens. Oh, well, obviously it looks like it's going to happen, but how and when and where. As I said, it'd be great to have it on its own, but worst case, how good would it be to be on the Paro Jarvis card? Now, speaking of that card, before we move on, just as I think of it, still no date. Now, we are, the end of July? It's supposed to be the end of September or September at some stage. That's 8 weeks away. We still haven't got a date or a venue. So is it happening? Is it not happening? I know Liam's over in the States at the moment in Vegas, which is great. I see he's getting some good rounds and some training there. So interesting to see what's happened. I'm sure knowing Jeff Fennick, he wouldn't be overly impressed about this, and probably knowing Alfie DiCarlo, he wouldn't be impressed about it either. 6 to 8 weeks out from a fight, you don't even know the date and the venue. So I'm sure behind the scenes it's all happening, but it's an interesting one. Not so stressed about the ticket sales thing. They could probably release tickets within 3 or 4 weeks, and it wouldn't be a problem. But I'll just check my. Yes, I am on Starlink. I'm just double checking. So I don't know if anyone knows about it that I don't, but so far no venue and no date for Paro versus Jarvis, and we are less than 2 months out. So we'll see what happens. We'll see. And I wonder. I'm assuming that Dempsey McKeon and Sky Nicholson. Who else they got with Matchroom, whoever, but I'm sure they'll all be on the card. So these guys, I'm assuming, are all training. They're all pretty hard. If you're trying to prep properly, are we going for 8 weeks? Are we going for 7 weeks? Are we going for 6 weeks? Pretty hard when you're trying to put those training blocks in and everything like that. So anyway, it's surprising. So if anyone knows any more information, let me know. Now, guys, what I'm going to do in this one, keep the questions coming before I get to it, though. If you've got anything, let them know. But I'm going to get into, the Australian top 10 of the modern era. Okay. This is just something I've been thinking about lately. And when I say the modern era, the 80s probably onwards. You could even say the 90s, but that would probably exclude a couple of good fighters I want to put in. So the Australian top 10 of the modern era. Now, this is absolutely fraught with danger. I know that. I know I'm going to get everyone cut me, but I'm going to try and do it. I've got a little bit of a list here. I'm going to run from 10 down to number 1. I know, as I said, I'm going to upset the masses out there. People, saying, what the hell do I know about boxing? But I've put it down to 4 different categories. It's not as easy as just saying, well, this guy's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, whatever it might be, because there's lots of intangibles that come in. One is that my opinion would be, if it was fighters out of Australia in the last modern era, then Costa Zoo is number 1. You could make obviously an argument for Jeff Fennick. I've put Costa to the one side. As you all know, I've said this. We did the all-time Australian top 10 in our first ever episode. Check it out if you're on the YouTube channel. It's a little bit embarrassing. It was our first ever crack at it. Hopefully, we've improved a lot since then. But I excluded all fighters that weren't necessarily Australian. Now, Costa, we all love Costa. I would have had him at number one, just in front of Jeff. But Costa is a Russian fighter, of course, who was based in Australia, not sort of the other way around. So Tim's a bit different, of course, born and bred in Australia, had his career, amateurs and pros and everything. But I've had to make the tough decision to put Costa to the side because, as I said, a Russian fighter who based himself in Australia and then, of course, went home. So apologies to the Costa Zoo fans out there, especially Glenn, if you're still watching. You probably turned off, said I'm excluding Costa. But I've just got it down to the, as I said, the modern Australian top 10. Now, criteria. One thing to say, as I said, this fighter is better than that fighter, but what I've put it down to is that one fighter you might think is a little bit naturally more than another fighter, but that other fighter might have actually achieved a bit more. Another fighter might have had bigger fights, but the other fighters, someone else has had better results. There's a lot of intangibles to go in. So what I've done, I've rated it all down to four components. The first one is just natural ability. Okay, just looking at them in black and white, natural ability, and where do we see they fall in the scheme of things. The other one was quality of opposition. Okay, so the fighters they fought along the journey. The other one was the results of those big fights. And then I've thrown in another little variable as well as home versus away. The fighters that have done it all on home soil compared to the ones that have done it overseas, or a combination of both. So I've ranked about 20 fighters from 1 to 20 in all of them, and I've come up with a top 10 that's bound to cause some dramas. Guys, it's just my opinion. You guys have all got yours. I got mine. I'm going to run through them, and then we'll get through some world news and any other questions that you guys want to get to. So I'm going to start at number 10, and I'm going to explain why. So for number 10, I've got Danny Green at number 10. Now, he probably could have been a little bit higher, probably an argument for it. He did fight Marcus Bayer overseas and got disqualified in a fight that he should have won. He obviously beat Eric Lucas over there. But the majority of his fights have all been in Australia. So that was sort of went up against him a little bit. I think the Anthony Mundine fight, again, took a little bit away because Anthony Mundine, when they're both at the peak, really did a job on Danny. And the titles that he won, I know he won the IBOs and those types of ones, interims titles. He only really won the one legitimate title, and that was against Stipe Drews, which is not exactly one of the all-time great champions. So I put him at number 10 because he did have, obviously, the win over Roy Jones Jr., Manny Siaka. He's had a few good wins. Quality of opposition was good too. He fought Antonio Tava and the Polish guy, his name, but he did get stopped by both those guys. But over the journey, I think he meets the criteria of number 10. Number 9, I've gone for Michael Casitas. Now, I'm going to actually type his record in here because I didn't have it up before. Casitas. Now, he didn't probably get a lot of the big results that some of the other guys did, but he based himself in the States. He had some massive fights over there and in England as well. Who could forget the fights of Graham Earl? You know, he fought Casamayor. He fought Cesar Amonsot in Vegas when Cesar was obviously at his peak. So he's fought some really tough guys. Obviously, Manuel Marquez, can't get much better than that. Even Robert Guerrero was a good opponent. Ricky Burns. So he's fought some really, really good guys. But the fact he put himself out there, it's a rip. Won some big fights, lost some big fights, of course. But I've had him at number 9 for his body of work. Number 8, I've gone for Anthony Mundine at number. Now, he should have been a lot higher. Natural ability-wise, I would have had him in the top 3 or 4. Anthony Mundine, for his natural ability. The problem, well, not the problem, the issue I've got with Anthony is he fought entirely at home. I know he had that against the Van Ock in Germany. We know how that went, but I just think he lost a lot of points by the fact he was based purely in Australia. Because, as I said, natural ability wise, top 5 for sure. Quality of opposition, yeah, okay. Big fight results, again, okay. Home and away, that went against him as well. So number 8 for Anthony the Man Mundine. I'm going to put the whole list up once I'm finished with this too. Number 7, I've gone for Jeff Harding. Now, Jeff actually lost a lot of points, more than anything, for the ability category. Now, I'm sure Jeff would have been the first to admit, or his most ardent fans, he's not the most talented guy in the world, but he got through purely on toughness and hardness and endurance and conditioning. And obviously most of anything was that hard, as I said. So Jeff Harding, ability lost a few points on that. I think he was at the tail end of a lot of the natural ability goes. But quality of opposition, fought some great fighters, obviously Dennis Andrews, Mike McCallum, to name a couple, Fabrice Tiozzo. He fought a lot of really good fighters, and he got the result over them. Won some, lost some, of course. Who could forget that fight with Dennis Andrews? Just amazing. 2 wins over him, and he did a lot of it overseas. So for me, Jeff Harding, while not naturally as talented as, say, an Anthony Mundine, achieved more and did it not just in Australia, but on the road as well. So I've got Jeff at number 7. Number 6 is Troy Waters. Again, a little bit like Jeff, probably a little bit more naturally talented than Jeff, I will say, but did it overseas. Simon Brown, Terry Norris, Felix Trinidad. He did it, Jorge Vaca. He fought him in Australia, I think. So he's got all these. Robert won Gill, Olympic gold medalist as well. He beat him overseas. So, look, he did it overseas. Didn't get the results. He lost to Gianfranco Rossi. Obviously, it's Terry Norris and Simon Brown. So really a little bit unlucky for those guys. But for his body of work, I think Troy Waters, number 6 for me. Number 5. This might surprise a few people, but the ones that are in the know will agree with me. I've got number 5 at Robbie Peden. Now, Robbie, very, very underrated, one of our best amateurs of all time. He went to 2 Olympics and a Commonwealth Games gold medalist as well, World Championships, you name it. He did it as an amateur. And as a pro, who can forget those wins over Nate Campbell? He fought one of Manuel Marquez, Marco Antonio Barrera at the MGM Grand main event, if you will. So for me, natural ability, again, I would have him in the top 3 or 4 Australian fighters of that time. Quality of opposition, as I said, Marquez, Barrera, Campbell, some good fighters in there. Big fight results, got the win over Campbell, of course. Couldn't get the wins over Marquez or Barrera, but the fact he did it, again, as I said, MGM Grand, I've got him at number 5. Very, very underrated Australian fighter was Robbie Peden. Number 4. Now, this will probably be one of the main points of conjecture. I've gone for Jeff Horn. Now, before you all fall off your chairs, this comes down to, look, natural ability-wise, probably not the greatest we've had out there. There's definitely more talented fighters, natural ability than Jeff Horn. Quality of opposition. Now, this really goes, he fought, obviously, Manny Pacquiao, Anthony Mundine, all those at the end of his career. Michael Zarafa is probably not quite at that level, but Terence Crawford as well. I've put him in there purely and solely, more than anything, is that to beat Manny Pacquiao in front of 50,000 people, live national TV, international TV. Manny Pacquiao wasn't shot. And regardless of what you thought about the decision, it was a split decision. It could have went either way. This is a debate I have with a lot of people. Oh, he got ripped off. Oh, Pacquiao got ripped off. He didn't get ripped off. It was a close fight that could have went either way. Jeff got the decision. That is not a rip-off. And the fact that Jeff got through that fight. Now, I suppose we can make a case of whether Jeff is one of the greatest fighters of that era or the Pacquiao was one of those best performances of that era. Because he did lose to Crawford after that. He beat Mundine, lost to Zarafa, of course, and then Tim Tszyu. So, yeah, it's an interesting one. But for me, the Pacquiao fight, I just can't go past that. And any of you guys that were there on the day or even watched it on TV, Jeff Horn, for me, based on that one fight, and then he went to Vegas to fight Crawford, didn't end well, but that Pacquiao fight, for me, puts him in the top 4. Another interesting one I've got at number 3 is George Kambosos. Now, this falls into the same category of Jeff. Is he one of the best fighters of that period, of the modern era, or was it the Lopez fight one of the best performances? Now, look when you look at the criteria, natural ability, so much natural ability does George Kambosos, very, very high as far as natural ability goes. Quality of opposition, still very good, of course. He lost to Haney, but he beat Lopez. Fought a few others, Lee Selby's, Mickey Bays, of course. Not overly high up there, but still a lot better opposition than a lot of other Aussie fighters have fought in that period. Big fight results for the Lopez fight. Went to Madison Square Garden in Lopez's hometown. Was knocked down, cut, battered, you name it, and he got the win. For me, again, that falls in the Pacquiao category. I'll put him slightly above Jeff because I just think he's probably naturally more, has natural more ability than Jeff. So I've got that in there. And look, if he beats Haney, I know we've got some doubts about that, but at least it puts him back into the picture. But I've got George number 3. Number 2, again, another underrated fighter, Daniel Gill. He is another guy that is just one of those guys who he won the world titles the hard way. He went to Germany. He unified the title in Germany as well. He fought the guys like Golovkin and Miguel Cotto as well over in the States. Big fights in the States. Didn't obviously get the results over there. Defended the world title a few times. I thought he beat Mundine twice. He didn't get the decision in the first one. That's when Mundine was at his peak, and I think he got ripped off in that fight. Well, not ripped off. He lost a close decision, as I said before, with the Jeff Horn Pacquiao situation. So I've got Daniel Gill at number 2. Look, if you're not overly familiar with Daniel, get on board because he's a very, very underrated fighter as well. So I got him number 2. Number 1, pretty obvious, Jeff Fennick. 3-time world champion, should have been 4, fought all the big fights. So the one thing, or a couple of things that went against him, as natural ability goes, I don't think he was really up there as far as these other fighters goes. I think we could probably put 10 fighters in front of him with more natural ability, but as far as that grit, conditioning, heart, endurance, you name it, he had it all. And he beat a lot of fighters that were a lot naturally more gifted than what he was. He just beat them by pure heart and conditioning and determination. So I don't really need to go through Jeff's portfolio. I think we're all familiar with it. Some unlucky ones, I will say. Barry Mullis, one thing that went through them, now, especially with Leicester, ability-wise, I would put him in the top 5 Australian fighters of all time, not just of the modern era, all time with natural ability goes. The only issue with Leicester, I think, is quality of opposition wasn't great. The world title he won at time, even though the IBF is very recognised now, it's a legitimate title. Back when it first came out, was probably seen as a WBF or an IBO sort of title is these days, or a WBU when it first came out. Obviously, it's a big one now, but back then it wasn't. So, but the quality of opposition wasn't great a line, and as he didn't really those big results, and and he fought exclusively in Australia. So that probably went against him. Barry Michael did go abroad, but just couldn't find a way to squeeze him in. I will say that I was very, very close of finding a way for Tim Tszyu to get in. Quite there yet is Tim. Obviously, if he wins this next fight, he'll probably in the top 3 or 2 or 3 if he beats Charlo. But just at the moment, I just couldn't squeeze him in there. He's had a few good fights now, but not quite the body of work just yet to get him in. But again, if he wins that Charlo fight, well, he'll probably be number 2 or 3, I would think. We'll put that past the Kambosos win, and it will be very close to the Pacquiao win that Jeff Horn had. So Tim, the other ones, Hussein and Nadal Hussein, another 2 that were great fighters in the last few years. The list could probably go on, but they're probably the ones that first come to mind. If you guys have got anyone that you want to throw in there, put him in there. But that's what I've got. I'm going to bring up the list now, just so you go over it again. So 1 is Jeff Fennick, 2 is Daniel Gill, 3 George Kambosos, 4 Jeff Horn, 5 Robbie Peden, 6 Troy Waters, 7 Jeff Harding, 8 Anthony Mundine, 9 Michael Casitas, and number 10 Danny Green. Now that's from the 80s to modern day. So feel free to have a crack at me, guys, if you've got anything you want to mention there. But that's just my opinion. But there's so many intangibles that go in there about how to rank these guys, because it's not easy just to say that, well, Anthony Mundine's a lot more talented than what Jeff Horn is, so he should be above him. It's not as easy as that. And as I said, like you've got Jeff Fennick, well, probably take Jeff away, but Daniel Gill won him on the road compared to Danny Green or Anthony Mundine that won all the big fights here in Australia. So a lot of things to weigh up. Sometimes it just comes down to gut feel, but that's the way I've got it at the moment. So you can have a look at that. Feel free to put a comment in there as well if you would like, and let me know what your thoughts are. So that's it for that one. A couple other things, guys. A couple of talking points I will sort of put out there. Crawford and Spence. Apparently, it's getting very, very close. This is on the world scene, of course. Getting close. I did read an article, though, that Bob Arum is very pessimistic that it will happen. Bob Arum is obviously the former promoter of Terence Crawford. He reckons that that the money won't be there to make the fight. Both fighters deserve big paydays. They'll expect big paydays. But whether the pay-per-view money is going to be there for it, especially in the age of piracy and all the rest of it, his thoughts are that there's not enough money to go around from the pay-per-views and the live gate and everything else to make the fight and give the fighters what they're going to expect for that fight to happen. So I just thought that was really interesting. I don't know whether it was maybe a little bit of sour grapes from Bob, or he's just trying to put a spanner in the works. But that really surprised me that he would say that. And he would know. Now, I don't think he would have been too stressed about seeing the back of Terence Crawford. I think he was open that Terence really cost him a lot of money and didn't really bring much to the table. And what you got to look at, I do probably share his concerns as far as the pay-per-view factor. The real boxing fans will eat it up. Will they pay $80 US for the money for the pay-per-view though? That's another question that has to be asked. I think Bob Arum said maybe a solution might be is to bring the pay-per-view money down to maybe half the price, and that would be to stop the piracy. But geez, you're running the gauntlet there. I mean, if you only get the same amount of pay-per-views and you've really much cut your cost in half, well, there goes even more money. So it's an interesting one. I'm sure we all want to see the fight happen, but will it? It's an interesting one, and boxing is a business. So it'd be interesting to see whether PBC or whoever's going to put the show on, put up the dollars to make it happen. So that's interesting to hear Bob Arum say that. And the other one was, I think I saw Timothy Bradley say that he thinks Ryan Garcia should wait at least another 3, 4, 5 fights before he fights Tank Davis. So I found that pretty interesting as well, that he said he should wait. He's not ready for him at the moment. Based on his last fight, I think they'll make it happen. I think Ryan Garcia said that he would fight him at any weight, anywhere, anytime. So he's put it out there. Haven't heard a lot back from Mayweather said they'll fight. So a lot of this going back and forth about, yeah, I'll fight and you want to fight and I'll fight, all the rest of it. But until we actually see the announcement, I suppose we won't know. So that was interesting as well. Let's get on to, before we go, the fight schedule. Now, one thing I will say is surprising at the moment, there's actually not a lot happening as far as the fight shows goes, which is really unusual. I would have thought after the last couple of years with COVID that we wouldn't, it would have been an influx of fights. But really, there's nothing on for the next 2 to 3 weeks. So I'll go through that before we go anyway. Before we get on to that, solid list. I'll be hoping, I'm assuming. Oh, yeah, really hope Chock and Danny won title before the fights, but enjoyed it all the same. Yeah, and the thing is, look, the one I'm disappointed, well, not disappointed, the one I'm a bit sad that didn't probably take the plunge big time is Anthony Mundine. I can understand why. Anthony Mundine had what it took to really make a splash overseas. I know he went over there for that one fight. And talk about hoodwinking the Australian public. He went over there, and look, good luck to him, because he did what he do, and he hoodwinked the Australian public when he went and fought Bronco McCart. I was thinking of Buddy McGirt. He fought Bronco McCart. That was billed on main event as a coming out party of Mundine in Vegas, the big Vegas coming out party. And here we go with Chock Mundine. This is going to be his entry into the market. Well, Bronco McCart was a journeyman at best, I will say. And the fight was held at a tiny little casino that I think from what I heard had 100 people in attendance, but it was marketed as his massive fight. They would have made an absolute ton going back for the pay-per-view. And look, Chock, I'm sure they would have been smart and said, look, you guys keep all the American stuff, all the gate receipts, all that sort of stuff, but we'll keep the pay-per-view money in Australia, because the way they market it, Main Event did a great job. As I said, they said this is his coming. I think we might have some connection issues there, by the way. We'll see how we keep going there. We might be back. Yeah, it was on the same night as that. So all the attention was at the Amir Khan, Danny Garcia fight. This got nothing. Had 100 people there. I think it might have been at the Palms or somewhere like that. And I've been to that venue. It doesn't hold a lot of people. So I had a fight there, but as I said, good luck to him. They would have made some good coin out of that. But, so I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't dive it all in. But as I said, I can understand that he didn't go, on the other hand, because the amount of money he was making here on pay-per-views and gates and all the rest of it, and it was all on his own terms. So he was making too much money. I don't blame him, but I just really would have liked to have seen how Anthony Mundine went if he had gone over to the States. I can understand Danny Green not going, with all due respect. I know Danny really well. Probably not really, what would you say, in the class of the real elite fighters over there. Real good, honest fight. I think Danny, I got so much respect for him because he got every ounce of ability out of himself, and he achieved such. Obviously, being a number 10. But I just don't think he was in the category of an Anthony Mundine or obviously a lot of the other fighters around. I think that showed when he fought the Tavas and the Polish guy as well, that he was way out of his depth in those fights. So, but look, he did beat Roy Jones Jr. Make of that fight what you will. But, yeah, it was, I just really would have liked to have seen that. But I'm with you on that one, mate. Now, what have we got here? Mundine going down. Yeah, I don't know what his team were thinking with that. And I really have no idea why you would encourage someone to continually go down in weight. Now, we had a guy from super middleweight back to middleweight. Yep, okay, but to go down to super welterweight, I mean, and he was just a shell of himself at that weight. He was a skeleton. He was weak. And you see the one common denominator in all those fights, he got dropped multiple times. I think it was Charles Hatley, Joshua Clotty dropped him numerous times. Just, I think more so because he was so weak. And you can't, when you've dropped that amount of weight, it's impossible to, to rehydrate that much. So I'm just going to go back to this for a sec. Tara of the week, you're going to be in trouble over the horn in and no Lester and Barry to be seen. Yeah, I know I might be in trouble over that one. I'm sure I'll cop it over Jeff. He tends to polarize people, Jeff, for some reason. Got so much respect for Jeff. But anyway, I think most people were just dirty that he beat Manny Pacquiao. And I can't believe that's even Australians in that boat. So Barry, I do see occasionally. I'm not sure he'll be overly impressed. But anyway, you can only call it as you see it. But yeah, just to go back to that, Mundine going down in weight, I just can't believe they wouldn't have said to him, Chock, especially as he was getting older. He was in his mid-30s and I was still dropping him down in weight. Now, if I had been advising him, I would have been saying, if anything, let's go back to super middleweight. Big, strong, healthy, especially as he gets on in age. Let's make sure we're at peak fitness and mentally and physically. You've seen Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather do it. They both probably could have made super lightweight or even lightweight. They both fought at welterweight as they got on in years because that's where they were at the peak. That was where they were comfortable. They didn't have to weight cut or anything. Both of them come in underweight or on weight. But from what people have said, they, sometimes they'd eat breakfast or lunch that day and still weigh in. So that's smart. But to go down in weight, you're just asking for trouble, and that's exactly what he got. Just a real shame. Chock was chasing Mayweather Dollars fight, I'm sure. Yeah, but it is. He was, but I don't think Mayweather would have even really known who Chock was. I know that's probably a bit of an ego crusher for Chock, but I think Mayweather would have just looked at it and just shrugged his shoulders and kept moving. I mean, we all liked it. The thing is, too, what you got to remember, Australians, I think, are the best nation for talking it up. Whether it's the social media guys, whether it's the promoters themselves, whether it's the media, whatever it might be. I mean, what you got to remember as well, the media, they don't follow boxing. They wouldn't have a clue what's going on out there. So when they get someone that's in that has a friend in the inner sanctum of the Herald Sun or the Sun, the Sydney Telegraph, whatever it's called up there or whatever, all they're going to do is, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, put the hook out there and they'll take it. And all of a sudden we've got a headline, in the boxing section or sports section, where they're considering fighting Chock Mundine. That's how it works. Never actually going to happen, but that's the way it is. You would as well. I'm not sure whether you're laughing at me or the situation there, mate, but I'm only just telling it the way it is because I'm using the word hoodwinked. It's one of my favourite words off another YouTube channel that I watch because that's what a lot of the promoters and that do in Australia. They hoodwink the real boxing fans, not idiots. All you got to do is read the comment section of Oz Boxing or Before the Fight or Oz Boxing Central. They're not idiots. They know. They're educated. They jump. The first thing they do is jump on BoxRec or they jump on YouTube or, and they put it out there. So that's why what's good about what I like about the boxing scene at the moment is because all these promoters out there haven't really got anywhere to hide. They haven't really got anywhere to hide. They've got to put on, so they're going to get called out for it. Or good shows, which is, I think, is good because a lot of those promoters that weren't probably doing the right thing are just being put by the wayside now, no longer relevant. And these other guys, promoters, are getting bigger and sort of cutting away a little bit of the dead meat, which is good. And we're just getting the best shows. And there are promoters out there. I know we always talk about No Limit and Tasman Fighters, but I mentioned before, we've got Angelo DiCarlo, Ace Boxing in Queensland doing great things. Wildfighter in Melbourne with Will Tomlinson doing great things. They're starting to grow where a lot of the others are starting to fall away. So I reckon you'll start to find those guys getting bigger, where we might actually have one, maybe two dominant promotional firms in each state. And that'll be about it. And they'll just have a monopoly on all their fighters, which would be great. Wouldn't it be great to have, I'm only sort of picking one here, but let's say it's a Will Tomlinson with Wildfighter in Melbourne. Again, I'm only just picking Will out. I spoke to him today, so it's just on my mind. That all of a sudden he has a bit of a, he's got the big pond in Melbourne that he can sort of go and fish from. And all of a sudden he's got each show he puts on is great fighters against other, not great fighters, great fights, but really good fighters against other really good fighters, up and comers, and the elite. And all of a sudden we've got some really good shows happening. So, and same as Angelo DiCarlo in Queensland. So, which is a tough market up there as well, because you've got Tasman Fighters and D&L as well to contend with. No Limit have probably got it all to themselves in New South Wales. So, what do we got there? Our media was gobbling that up, but you call it, mate. They gobble anything up because they don't know any better. If you try and talk shit and you're talking football or rugby or whatever, hey, they'll call it out. Yeah, no, mate, that's not right. I know because my source tells me. They haven't got any sources. Or the sources they've got are the same bullshitters that are just trying to puff their chest out and make themselves feel a little bit more relevant or important. That's what it comes down to. Boxing is a very, very ego-driven sport. Everyone's trying to be relevant. Everyone. And whether it's trying to sneak into the shot when the camera comes on them in the ring or at ringside or wherever it might be, we all want to be relevant, whether it's trying to sneak into the entourage or whatever it might be, or put out the little snippet to the Herald Sun or the Sun, what's the Sydney one called? The Herald or Telegraph? I'm not sure. Sydney Morning Telegraph, whatever it is. But putting a little snippet like that out there, and those promoters feel good about themselves for a weekend, and happy days. So, but yeah. So anyway, it'd be nice to actually have a proper boxing representative in the proper media. I mean, we've got great social media at the moment. I love Oz Boxing, Australian Boxing Central. I think the one that does it better than all of them, if you ask me, is Before the Fight, because Rob's actually putting himself out there. He's putting his money up. Probably going to get just interesting text coming through there. Better be careful what I say. But yeah, so I was just going to say about Rob with Before the Fight. As I said, he's got his studio. He does a show. He gets to all the events. He does really, really good. He has his talkback shows and all that going on like we do here. So got a lot of time for Rob. And as I said, Oz Boxing is probably the bigger one in Australia, and probably followed by Oz Boxing Central. But yeah, those guys do a great job. But to have someone in the legitimate media that, as I said, like the Herald Sun or the Sydney variant of that as well, or the Queensland, to get it out there and actually have a proper section like we used to have. I remember in the Herald Sun in Melbourne, I think it was Ron Reed in Melbourne, passed away recently, but used to actually have a boxing section and used to come with all the news, and he was educated. He knew what was going on. He knew what was happening. And even if you look at online now, all those media sites, all they're doing is just dragging stuff from other boxing sites. Lazy journalists. And it's all about, unless it's football or rugby or cricket, very, very tough to get a look in. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. All right, guys. So that's about it. Unless you guys have got anything else to talk about, that's it for me. I'll stop talking while I can before I keep putting my foot in it. But no, it's all good. Thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate you tuning in as always. Apologies again for the internet if it hasn't been any good. And yeah, thanks to everyone for watching and listening. We got a lot of people that listen to it on Spotify after the fact, and then watch it on YouTube or Facebook after the night after this has ended as well. So really appreciate it, everyone tuning in. We're growing all the time, which is good. So as we said, like, share, subscribe, all those different things, and we'll see you same time next week. Thanks again.